Hey, welcome back to our show. Last night we had a name for the show and the review at night, and we've decided that's not what we're going to go with. Tonight's show is called Overtime with Justin Kim. And
with the bass booming while you're
yeah,
saying it.
the bass is booming. Everybody got so excited about the new title for the show that they're actually partying out in the dome. Anyway, listen. Overtime with Justin Kim. I think that's what the show's called tonight, and I like that for Sabbath, and I like it because of this. There's actually a tradition in some Jewish communities that they don't consider the Sabbath over until they see their third star appear in the evening sky. They
right?
want it to linger. They don't want it just to be sunset. We don't want to give up the Sabbath quite yet. We just want it to go a few minutes longer and wait for that third star to appear. So
Interesting.
we're still well ahead of sunset here in St. Louis, but what a Sabbath it has been. I do want to linger. So tonight's show's called Overtime with Justin Kim. And today, our new president
That's right. He was preaching.
preached his inaugural sermon.
Yeah, we were wondering if he was going to do a presidential report, if he was going to do a secretary's report, and he went and did a secretary material, but in very presidential style.
It was, yeah.
It's very inspiring.
I love today a lot. You know, he's very mission driven. There were a few comments he made, and he's in this funny position because he was slated, I believe, to preach today as the secretary of the General Conference. But when he got up into the pulpit, he's now the General Conference president.
Yeah.
And I believe next Sabbath he has to preach
again, and this will be his presidential sermon where he lays out his ideals, vision, principles for the next 5 years. So it should be just as interesting.
But what I got a gist of today is how his heart beats, what consumes his thoughts. And I heard a few statements right out of the beginning that I thought, oh, I love this. We are family was one of the first statements that he made in today's sermon. And you can watch this online. You can go back and watch the sermon. But that was powerful to me because if you remember, yesterday we were discussing the fact that before he actually accepted the call to serve as General Conference president, he sat down with his family. He said, no, I need to confer with my family. But then he referred to us all as the worldwide family of the church. But I'll tell you this, the thing that really got me going, maybe because I've been in public evangelism for 30-some years, is the mission focus that he brought today. And he did a survey of the book of Acts and underlined the word bold. We need to be bold. And man, that makes my blood pump because honestly, I think we've got the right message for this time. God did not mess up giving the remnant church the three angels' messages. It works. And I'm telling you, in my experience, it's working better now than it ever has. I'm getting bigger audiences and so on. We have the right message. We live in the right time. We've been given all the counsel we need for success. What we often lack in a local congregation is just the courage to try. So let me ask you, I mean, we're building on Elder Kohler's sermon today, boldness, the survey of the boldness that launched the church. I think he said we went from 120 to potentially as many as 1 million Christians in a generation, 1 million Christians in the Roman Empire, 1 out of 70 people by the time that was done. So let me ask you, have you found in ministry that boldness paid off, that God honored the courage to do what he asked you?
Oh, that's a good question. I was thinking while you were mentioning that, I was a new pastor and I was called to a funeral. The young person died of a drug overdose and all of his young friends were there. I was the only Asian guy there and it was awkward. And I was the pastor that had to run the entire funeral. And I was just I was afraid and I was just gonna go through the, perfunctory things.
Right.
And these guys, these kids in the funeral were all high.
Oh, really? Oh,
and I don't know what just came over me and I was like, look, I gotta be bold. Like I'm a pastor. I don't want to just rebuke them. I'm not frustrated with them. I want to care for their souls. And in the middle of the sermon, I just stopped. I said, hey guys, if you're not careful, I'm going to be doing your funeral next.
Wow.
And then afterwards, I was just completely afraid of what's going to happen in the parking lot or whatever. Well, the whole service was crazy. There was grandmothers who were crying, And then I went to the parking lot and these kids, these thugs were coming after me.
Really?
And I was afraid. and they came after me. And then the grandmas, they surrounded me, and then just to be, they were protecting the pastor.
The grandma bodyguard showed up.
And eventually they said, hey, we want to hear more what you have to say.
Really?
No one has talked to us that way. And you're right, if we continue to route as our friend in the funeral, and then, you know, they got red eyes and they're just, you know, high and whatever. And that was a message from the Lord saying, you got to be bold in your preaching. Not bold because of arrogance, not bold because we want to just, you know, tell you how it is, but for their soul's sake, for love for people and for their future trajectory of salvation. I mean, and I think Kohler takes this message and broadens it for all of Adventists, all of Adventism. Hey, let's take this message, not out of arrogance, not out of some high lofty thing, but for love. For love.
Wow. Wow. You know, I've often thought about this. You will hear the saints say, we've got to pray for the latter rain. And I completely concur. We should be praying for the latter rain. But then sometimes I wonder, are the angels of heaven waiting for the latter rain too, wondering when we're going to get started on the assignment, you know, in our churches? Is it possible that God is waiting for us to live as if the latter rain's going to fall and exercise that boldness he was talking about this morning? Like, I've been at it I'm not the world's finest evangelist, but I've been at it for 30-some years, and I've noticed this. God doesn't start providing the miracles to encourage you to get started, and that was kind of in Kohler's sermons today, too.
Yeah.
Get started, and then watch God bless. People will say to me, Sean, where are all the miracles like there were in the book of Acts? Where are they? Well, the truth is, God doesn't perform miracles to entertain the saints. That's not what they're for. We have segments of Christianity in America where they say, oh, the Spirit is in the church, and it's really just entertainment for everybody. Does God perform miracles? Yeah. I've seen the kinds of things you read about in the book of Acts, but God does it on the front line where lost sinners are going to their graves without Christ. He performs the miracles to win souls, and if you want to see them, get started.
Yeah.
Choose to believe that God did not make a mistake with the assignment, that He's going to bless, and I don't know.
And you know what I like? I appreciate that he used this quote. I want to make sure I get it right. That the money follows mission.
Absolutely.
Not mission follows money. And that's as an administrator, he's using this courage, this boldest motif, and actualizing it. Yeah. He's saying like, hey, rather than wait for the money, wait for the resources, hey, go out on a limb, go out for the Lord, and if it's for mission, all the blessings will follow afterwards. And I think that's just, it's not just a soundbite. I mean, it really resonated with the crowd for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've found the same thing. You know, it's money follows mission. Everything follows mission. This thought occurs to me often. God doesn't actually need us. You know, I mean, my angel at times must say, you know, Sean, just get out of the way. Let me do this, because we really are quite finite and quite fallen, and we don't see things the way heaven sees it. But God uses us, not because He needs us. I think it's because this is supposed to be how we grow. There's a quote in Steps to Christ, page 80, where Ellen White says, the only way, not one of the ways, the only way to grow in grace is to disinterestedly work for the benefit of others. That's the Boonster paraphrase. But, you know, it's pretty close to that. Steps to Christ, page 80. Probably my favorite page in all of her writings. And I've discovered that to be true. God didn't need me because I'm eloquent, or He doesn't need you because you're eloquent and so on. He's doing this for your own good. You will watch God move and realize we're in charge of very little, and the blessings do come once you exercise that boldness that we heard about this morning.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Any other impressions about today?
You know, I really liked, and I don't know if you can just geek out about this a little bit, but like when the service was all over and it ended with this musical high, it was an interplay. You guys can scrub through the video, but interplay between "We Have This Hope" and "Jesus is Coming Again."
Oh, right, yeah.
It was what is it? A medley between the two. It's a little bit let down because I wanted to like sing. You know, I wanted to be part of it. It was getting climactic, and it was getting higher and higher and higher, and then the song ended. And they're like, and then they invited everyone to stand up again, and we sang the song. But it was awesome. There was orchestra, you had all these people, and to have, do you know how many people are in the stadium today?
I don't know. It was, let's just say it was a lot. But
to have all these
thousands
Adventists,
and thousands.
Yeah, to have all these Adventists, and it's not your, 2-member church, but you have like 20,000, 30,000, 80,000, 100,000.
I don't know. A lot of GC sessions have 70,000
together. That Jesus is coming soon. Yeah. Just you get a little bit of the tingles in the back, and just I don't know. That was good.
Here's what I get from this a little bit is that I'm watching this building fill up on a Sabbath with representatives from all over the world. And today I was reminiscing about my very first Sabbath ever and how I drove to church. And I felt like, I put this in the blog for tonight, but I felt like I'm in this submarine of sanctity, pushing my way through the neighborhood, watching people do their yard work and go to work. And it's like, it's just a regular day for everybody. It's my first Sabbath. It felt so strange to these people not know it's Sabbath. And I walk into the church, and even though it's one local congregation, what I was most excited about, this is it. This is a prophetic last day movement that is global. And today I was watching people file in and then file out of church from every nation on earth, nearly. And I'm thinking, the founders of this movement knew this was coming. They pointed to the prophecies and said, this is global. There will eventually be a loud cry. This message goes to all the earth, the three angels' messages. And here we are in a place that they dreamed of seeing, and we're watching what they anticipated play out in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
And then a challenge to go out there and take the world for Christ from our new GC president. Exercise some boldness. I love that.
Yeah, I don't think they would have imagined, 50% of the church being from Africa, about 40% being from South America, to have a South American president, to have missionaries going to the Middle East, China, India. I mean, in some way, that's how the church is today. But what the pioneers envisioned, I mean, it's incredible.
Well, another thought occurred to me today as I was thinking, when John was shown the closing scenes of Earth's history in the book of Revelation, and when Daniel got glimpses of, God's final people on earth, I sometimes wonder, what exactly did they catch a glimpse of? Is it possible that John, as these scenes are passing before him, saw this today? Did God let him peek at this session? Like, what if this is the last one? I hope it is. I hope it's the last one. What if it's the last one? What if he saw this convocation, and that's roughly 2,000 years ago, and we get to sit here and see it play out? But watching it's not enough. We don't just get to watch it play out. We're being challenged today to step into it and wrap this thing up. Wrap this thing up.
And I got to say that we come to sessions like this, and it feels like, wow, the work is almost over. But really, 66% of the world still has not heard the name of Jesus. So I praise the Lord for our global church, but we still have a great work to be done, and it's boldness that we need based on our faith to push that forward.
Right.
Yeah.
As the Sabbath hours are closing around a lot of the world for a lot of you, you're going to want to tune in tomorrow. A lot of you are not at work tomorrow, and tomorrow the business session will resume.
That's right.
And
we'll have nominating committees interrupting again, and primarily because we have now the president, most likely the executive secretary and the treasurer. The three executive officer positions will be solidified tomorrow, hopefully. Lord willing.
Yep. You're not going to want to miss this, and tomorrow night we'll have another wrap-up. Who knows what the show will be called tomorrow night? Another new title. Matter of fact, why don't you send us a title for the show?
There you go.
Just send us a title for the show. You want to go to AdventistReview.org. You just want to keep going back there. The best source of information for what happens here is the church itself, the AdventistReview.org. And so come back tomorrow night. We'll have a brand new title. Tonight was Overtime with Justin Kim. Who knows what it is tomorrow? Thanks for joining us tonight. God bless you.